Mark Twain Selected Works. Goldsmith's Friend Abroad Again. Part 2. Letter 4. San Francisco, 18. Dear Ching Fu, I have been here about a month now, and am learning a little of the language every day. My employer was disappointed in the matter of hiring us out to service on the plantations in the far eastern portion of this continent. His enterprise was a failure, and so he set us all free, merely taking measures to secure to himself the repayment of the passage money which he paid for us. We are to make this good to him out of the first moneys we earn here. He says it is $60 apiece. We were thus set free about 2 weeks after we reached here. We had been massed together in some small houses up to that time, waiting. I walked forth to seek my fortune. I was to begin life a stranger in a strange land, without a friend or a penny or any clothes but those I had on my back. I had not any advantage on my side in the world, not one, except good health and the lack of any necessity to waste any time or anxiety on the watching of my baggage. No, I forget. I reflected that I had one prodigious advantage over paupers in other lands. I was in America. I was in the heaven-provided refuge of the oppressed and the forsaken. Just as that comforting thought passed through my mind, some young men set a fierce dog on me. I tried to defend myself, but could do nothing. I retreated to the recess of a closed doorway, and there the dog had me at his mercy, flying at my throat and face or any part of my body that presented itself. I shrieked for help, but the young men only jeered and laughed. 2 men in gray uniforms, policemen is their official title, looked on for a minute and then walked leisurely away. But a man stopped them and brought them back and told them it was a shame to leave me in such distress. Then the 2 policemen beat off the dog with small clubs, and a comfort it was to be rid of him, though I was just rags and blood from head to foot. The man who brought the policemen asked the young men why they abused me in that way, and they said they didn't want any of his meddling. And they said to him, "This Ching divil comes to America to take the bread out of decent, intelligent white men's mouths, and when they try to defend their rights, there's a deal of fuss made about it." They began to threaten my benefactor, and as he saw no friendliness in the faces that had gathered meanwhile, he went on his way. He got many a curse when he was gone. The policeman now told me I was under arrest and must go with them. I asked one of them what wrong I had done to anyone that I should be arrested, and he only struck me with his club and ordered me to hold my up. With a jeering crowd of street boys and loafers at my heels, I was taken up an alley and into a stone-paved dungeon which had large cells all down on one side of it, with iron gates to them. I stood up by a desk while a man behind it wrote down certain things about me on a slate. One of my captors said, "Enter a charge against this Chinaman of being disorderly and disturbing the peace." I attempted to say a word, but he said, "Silence! Now ye had better go slow, my good fellow. This is 2 or 3 times you've tried to get off some of your damned insolence. Lip won't do here. You've got to simmer down, and if you don't take to it peaceable, well, see if we can't make you. That's your name? Ah Sung He. Alias what? I said I did not understand, and he said what he wanted was my true name, for he guessed I picked up this one since I stole my last chickens. They all laughed loudly at that. Then they searched me. They found nothing, of course. They seemed very angry and asked who I supposed would go my bail or pay my fine. When they explained these things to me, I said I had done nobody any harm, and why should I need to have bail or pay a fine? Both of them kicked me and warned me that I would find it to my advantage to try and be as civil as convenient. I protested that I had not meant anything disrespectful. Then one of them took me to one side and said, "Now look here, Johnny, it's no use you playing soft you with us. We mean business, you know, and the sooner you put us on the scent of a V, the easier you'll save yourself from a deal of trouble. You can't get out of this for any less. Who's your friends?" I told him I had not a single friend in all the land of America, and that I was far from home and help and very poor, and I begged him to let me go. He gathered the slack of my blouse collar in his grip and jerked and shoved and hauled at me across the dungeon, and then, unlocking an iron cell gate, thrust me in with a kick and said, "Rot there, you fern spawn, till you learn that there's no room in America for the likes of ye or your nation." Ah Sung He. Letter 5. San Francisco, 18. Dear Ching Fu, you will remember that I had just been thrust violently into a cell in the city prison when I wrote last. I stumbled and fell on someone. I got a blow and a curse, and on top of these a kick or two and a shove. In a second or two it was plain that I was in a nest of prisoners and was being passed around. For the instant I was knocked out of the way of one, I fell on the head or heels of another and was promptly ejected, only to land on a third prisoner and get a new contribution of kicks and curses and a new destination. I brought up at last in an unoccupied corner, very much battered and bruised and sore, but glad enough to be let alone for a little while. I was on the flagstones, for there was no furniture in the den except a long, broad board, or a combination of boards like a barn door, and this bed was accommodating 5 or 6 persons, and that was its full capacity. They lay stretched side by side, snoring, when not fighting. One end of the board was 4 inches higher than the other, and so the slant answered for a pillow. There were no blankets, and the night was a little chilly. The nights are always a little chilly in San Francisco, though never severely cold. The board was a deal more comfortable than the stones, and occasionally some flagstone plebeian like me would try to creep to a place on it. And then the aristocrats would hammer him good and make him think a flag pavement was a nice enough place after all. I lay quiet in my corner, stroking my bruises and listening to the revelations the prisoners made to each other and to me. For some that were near me talked to me a good deal. I had long had an idea that Americans, being free, had no need of prisons, which are a contrivance of despots, for keeping restless patriots out of mischief. So I was considerably surprised to find out my mistake. Ours was a big general cell, it seemed, for the temporary accommodation of all comers whose crimes were trifling. Among us there were 2 Americans, 2 greasers, Mexicans, a Frenchman, a German, 4 Irishmen, a Chilean, and in the next cell, only separated from us by a grate and two women, all drunk and all more or less noisy. And as night fell and advanced, they grew more and more discontented and disorderly, occasionally shaking the prison bars and glaring through them at the slowly pacing officer and cursing him with all their hearts. The two women were nearly middle-aged, and they had only had enough liquor to stimulate instead of stupefy them. Consequently, they would fondle and kiss each other for some minutes, and then fall to fighting and keep it up till they were just two grotesque tangles of rags and blood and tumbled hair. Then they would rest a while and pant and swear. While they were affectionate, they always spoke of each other as ladies, but while they were fighting, strumpet was the mildest name they could think of, and they could only make that do by tacking some sounding profanity to it. In their last fight, which was toward midnight, one of them bit off the other's finger, and then the officer interfered and put the greaser into the dark cell to answer for it, because the woman that did it laid it on him, and the other woman did not deny it because, as she said afterward, she wanted another crack at the hussy when her finger quit hurting, and so she did not want her removed. By this time, those two women had mutilated each other's clothes to that extent that there was not sufficient left to cover their nakedness. I found that one of these creatures had spent 9 years in the county jail, and that the other one had spent about 4 or 5 years in the same place. They had done it from choice. As soon as they were discharged from captivity, they would go straight and get drunk and then steal some trifling thing while an officer was observing them. That would entitle them to another 2 months in jail, and there they would occupy clean, airy apartments and have good food and plenty, and being at no expense at all, they could make shirts for the clothiers at $50 apiece, and thus keep themselves from smoking tobacco and such other luxuries as they wanted. When the 2 months were up, they would go just as straight as they could walk to Mother Leonard's and get drunk, and from there to Kearney Street and steal something, and thence to this city prison, and next day back to the old quarters in the county jail again. One of them had really kept this up for 9 years, and the other 4 or 5, and both said they meant to end their days in that prison. The former of the two did. Finally, both these creatures fell upon me while I was dozing with my head against their grating, and battered me considerably, because they discovered that I was a Chinaman, and they said I was a bloody, interloping loafer come from the devil's own country to take the bread out of decent people's mouths and put down the wages for work, when it was all a Christian could do to keep body and soul together as it was. Loafer means one who will not work. Ah Song He